Hello, friends. Oh,
Well,
happy Saturday. We do these on Saturdays. Kind of chose that as our day, but who knows when you're watching it, of
yeah, happy day, whatever day it is.
course. Oh,
Oh, sharing a chair.
sharing a chair. Today we're thinking about the weight that we put on different things. And I'm not quite sure where this thought came from. I know last night I was having a bunch of thoughts about this, but it's something we do every day, right? We place different amounts of weight on different things.
It probably came because there are decisions that we have to make in our lives. And some decisions are simple and it feels easy because you don't even have to think about it. But then there's other decisions and we put a lot more weight and we weigh this version versus that version.
Yeah, it's sometimes I wish we could all just step into our divine motherness for a second and look at ourselves as incarnations and see our operating systems. The weight we put on things often feels very automatic. But when we can step back and feel it, there's an emotional, mental energy that we put
Yeah.
on to some things. And often that it is very automatic, it's very unexamined. And so we find ourselves moving through life, placing undue emphasis sometimes on things that, if we would look carefully, probably don't deserve that emphasis. And just as importantly, or more importantly, often we don't properly weigh things that maybe should be more important.
Wow, then what's a person supposed to do actually?
Part of any spiritual path, any mindfulness path, any nature path, it's what we do with people out at Rewild You, is this idea of mindfulness or awareness, of looking and saying, okay, autopilot is great. It just lets you glide through life in a wonderful zombie-like fashion, and you never really feel alive. So
That's the downside.
it is the
You
downside.
never really feel, but you never really feel alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really is worth it to stop and look and take stock of where we put that emphasis. You were talking about child rearing earlier.
Well, yeah. So when we were first parents, obviously there's no instruction manual and it can be a little overwhelming. And just as you think you're getting to know your child, they will often have a developmental growth period. And sometimes, most of the time, that for us at least was accompanied by changes in mood and sleep and all sorts of things, but such that we were left going, wait, what happened to our sweet little toddler? Now that she's throwing tantrums and she's whining at us and she's saying no to everything, and oh my gosh. And for a while, because we didn't really know, we took that very seriously and we thought we're doing something wrong. Our parenting, what are we doing? And it felt kind of serious. And oh my gosh, if she stays like this, she's going to be this spoiled, entitled, terrible adult. And that was a little bit too much weight, because really what would happen inevitably is a couple days, a week, a couple months, and then boom, they've passed that developmental stage, they've evened out, and then think, oh, okay, oh, that was just a phase. But how quickly we forget, because then the next one would come along. And after a while, we got to looking at each other and going, look, if she's still like this, because we have girls, if she's still like this in 10 years, then there's a problem and we'll talk about it. Not that we ignored things, we obviously did our best to parent the best that we could, but we started to take some of those things with less weight.
Mm.
And I think it's really important to realize that kind of what we see as serious and what we start to get anxious or worked up about can influence our whole existence. Essentially, what you pay attention to is what your life will be about.
It can feel like it just takes over your life, those things that we take seriously. But
Yeah.
people probably saw my look. I think you were being unfair. I think the truth of that whole matter was that I took the developmental stages pretty seriously. But in my memory, from quite early, you were saying you had this saying that I would repeat to people and repeat as a mantra to myself.
Oh yeah.
If this is still a problem when they're 18.
Yeah.
And I feel like that got me through so many things where, as a parent, you think you weigh things heavily.
Mm-hmm.
The child is doing something that seems, let's say, disrespectful. And then you think, you project and you go, oh, they're going to turn out to be a disrespectful adult. This 3-year-old, because they're doing this, is going to
Right.
somehow, when they're 43, be a person that also thinks that they are going to be super privileged. And then you you don't give the world time to operate and
Yeah.
do its thing.
Yeah, well, I think you can start to make choices that maybe aren't the right choices, or sometimes we can do things we regret because we make a split second decision with a lot of heavy weight on it. It isn't, I'm not saying that if you're having issues with anybody that you shouldn't communicate, you shouldn't have an awareness of it. It's just all of a sudden getting that locked in image of, right, your 43-year-old child being horrendous because when they were 3 they had a tantrum. uh, that's a little bit too much weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I think it's really essential to kind of realize that, as you were saying, there's a lot of cultural conditioning, not just from our lifetime, but going back in time. Your parents were culturally conditioned and they brought that to you. And now you have ways that maybe aren't your own ways. And anytime we give something too much weight without thinking about it, we can run the risk of not actually having it be us that's doing the experiencing, that's being this manifestation. Um, and likewise, as you said, there are some things that we don't pay enough attention to that we should maybe consider a little bit more. But I think all of this is to say that what we think about things too, we have to realize that, again, I think it comes back to truth. What is the truth? We've talked about this a lot. The Buddha kind of said, hey, don't take my word for it, go out, have some experiences, see what is right, what for you, what you experience. Don't And so I like messages that don't weight themselves either, messages that say, hey, here's something to consider, go and see if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes where I, in my ideal world, if I'm going to be on autopilot, I would like that to be my autopilot, which is, okay, weigh all of this, but see what's going on and don't make too many quick decisions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, with that kind of a mindset, we get to just explore life in a different way and not be pummeled along by these, you talked about it as these historical, passed down from
Yeah.
generation to generation. And of course, if you've gone into Zen and stuff, you recognize, so we're talking in myth, in the sense that yes, there may have been generations before us. Again, this probably won't make sense unless you've gone deep into kind of non-dualism or really examining some ideas about the world. But we have no proof that there were generations before us or anything
Yeah.
besides thisness right now. And so that's the myth that we've chosen that then creates. But we could equally take the myth that Divine Mother is becoming each of us with this set of things that we feel as weight. Like, it's really important to do this, and it's really important this. And those things that are part of our incarnation, our ego self, this creation that is Rebecca, is me, is you, those are, from that perspective, it can get more playful because we can say, oh, this is the dance, this is the play, the game, the adventure that Divine Mother is on through us. And our job is to look at those things and see if we can slip out of those and either choose some weights that feel like they align more with with values that we want to hold, or we might end up finding that there's an ultimate weight that we put on something, and that changes how we look at the whole world around us.
Explain that part.
Well, I think that's the final message of this.
Yeah, there's
This
always
video.
there's
So
always layers, I guess.
yeah.
I mean, you can start at the beginning and you can get into, we were kind of talking about, it's this sort of self-help place where you say, okay, I am not my thoughts and feelings, right? And I am not going to necessarily react. I'm going to take a chance to think and then respond. And that's a really, in a way, a very healthy place to live from. That's why I was saying if I could have an autopilot, that would be it. It would not be react. It would be, okay, observe, experience, respond. And there wouldn't necessarily be a if A, then always B.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think there aren't really absolutes. Each situation is its own thing. And then, of course, I love what you said about, in a way, it comes back to the video game idea. Maybe we're just in some kind of a virtual game, and, we've just selected this character, and now we actually get a choice. And I love that perspective because it kind of goes a little bit more meta in the sense that you begin to feel as though you can craft what your perceptions and weights are. So instead of just being born with internal weights, you suddenly see, yes, okay, I can choose these.
Yeah.
But I think there is at least one more kind of reaching outward and looking from above or going deeper, whatever you want to say. And I'd love for you to share that because you said it really well earlier.
Yeah.
No pressure. No pressure.
Well, I was talking with. Well, there's a friend that I'm working with, and she's been doing a lot of meditation lately, and she's been talking about this very thing, that there's these layers. Being present moment. There's a practical layer to that. We learn about it and we think, oh yes, okay, if I spend less time in my mind thinking about dwelling on future and past, then maybe I can be more efficient in my life and enjoy life a little bit more. So it's just the practical aspect. And then there's layers upon layers that unfold. But then, yeah, sometimes we can get to an ultimate or a base layer, even though we don't, that layer will be also an onion in that we can experience in different ways.
You mean onion skin?
Onion skin. Well, like an onion, in that there's layers and layers of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so one of the skins or layers of an onion, yeah. And so, if we talk about anything that is on a quote deeper level or more ultimate, never thinking that that's the end,
right? The
end game, that we always can explore more deeply and soak into things more. But with this in particular, I like to think that there's all these things that we can weigh. I used to weigh my ego self, or how Kenton looked, a lot more heavily than I presently do. But Brett and I were talking about this the other day, how we'd go to a party and we cared a lot, at a gathering about what other people thought of us and what we sounded like, and worried about the impressions we would leave on people. And just as we've gotten older, if we're just feeling, because he and I both tend to be slightly antisocial, if we just sit in a corner the whole time and we don't really care if people are going to think, oh, there's a wallflower.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter as much. And so this releasing of the weight, all the way to the point where we start to say, I can look at my day and I can say, it's really important. I'll try to use the examples I was thinking of earlier. It's really important that I do the dishes. It's really important that I'm kind to my wife.
Yeah, that's really important, actually.
It's really important that I pay my bills. These things that feel really important and
Mm.
very weighty. And I give those attention, and I will have a certain experience of life, and my day will feel a certain way. My life will feel a certain way. This is again something we don't have a word for in our
Mm-hmm.
world. The basic feeling that we have of life,
Yeah.
but we are capable of having very different feelings or sensations of living or existing. And that kind of feeling, as I move through a day like that, feels fairly chopped up. It
Mm-hmm.
has that emotional kind of weight on these things. So you might even be able to feel it a little bit yourself, something akin to what I'm feeling when I think like that. Oh, geez, there's a lot of dishes down there. And I said that to Rebecca yesterday, and that wasn't very kind. And the bill, how are we going to make finances work? And uh, it has this feeling.
Heavy feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of heavy.
Weight. We're talking about weight
It's
here.
it's rather exhausting too. Yes,
Yeah.
wait. If I go kind of radical and I say, there's only actually one thing that I need to give any weight to at all. Only one thing. And that one thing is being present and in love with Divine Mother. In the way this spiritual path unfolds, if I just do that, that's the only thing I pay
Mm.
attention to, then when I look at the dishes, I might feel myself drawn to the dishes because there's a sensation of doing the dishes, which is you kind of like doing the dishes.
Well, I love
There's
doing the
something,
dishes, especially now.
yeah.
Because now there's a bird feeder right over here
Oh,
too. So
bird feeder.
yeah, and I've done dishes in places where there hasn't been running water and it hasn't been warm. And so this is warm. I'm in my house. I'm looking out a window. Um, I don't know. And it's kind of a little time for me. I know that sounds kind of odd, but the funny thing is, I don't really like doing dishes at other people's houses. I don't know why, but I like doing dishes at my house. So I guess since
Yeah,
I'm mostly at my house.
it's become an experience that you look forward to, and I think that's what can happen when I'm immersed in Divine Mother's love. Then doing the dishes becomes an act of service to the
Mm.
family. It becomes an act of presence as that water runs over my hands, and you're looking out the window and seeing the birds,
Mm.
and you're watching dishes shift from dirty to clean, and there's this whole experience that you get wrapped up and fall in love with. Because falling in love with Divine Mother is falling in love with all of this. So then being kind to my wife becomes not a chore and am I saying the right things, but the
Mm.
Buddha spoke about this, a natural way of being that can come out of us.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Tao. We flow naturally
Yeah,
when we release into this, when we stop trying or having
yeah.
effort.
It's like Alan Watts's kind of mutual arising. You suddenly are able to come together with whatever is happening in the present moment and have, as you were saying, a natural kind of almost not really thought about. It's like being in the flow response and interaction that when we weight something and make sure that has to be done, or you must always be like this, we can't get to that mutual arising place.
Yes.
And I think we hold ourselves back.
That's there's other ways to talk about this Wu Wei, this idea of again going with the Tao, but
Mm-hmm.
this mutual arising, I love that because it it creates this feeling to me of dance,
Mm.
of seeing a thing that I used to maybe look at as a weighty thing that would take an effort, and instead it becomes something that lifts you up at the same time that you're lifting it up, as if you're being risen up by the wind under your wings, that thermal that lifts you as you see a bird rise in circles. This now has shifted from here's all these things of the world, these worldly things
Mm-hmm.
that are demanding my attention and energy, to and exhausting me and pulling me away from having any much weight or attention to give to this bhakti path, this path of divine mother love. Instead, I shift all of my attention to that bhakti path. And when I do that, I find that the things of the world, they take care of themselves. And not in some, well, kind of in a magical sense. Not in a magical sense of like come down and the dishes are done, even though I didn't do them, but that you come down and you see the things that would have pulled you in and had weight before, and they become joys that you are drawn to automatically as a natural expression of that love for the world.
What's the poem that talks about? So, I can't remember. All I can remember is the grass grows by itself is the final line.
Oh,
what is
yeah,
that? Do you remember that one?
Spring comes and the grass grows of its.
Yeah, there's another one. I take a nap, making the mountain water pound the rice.
Yeah.
There's this thought of a flow that we can tap into, and for me, it's very much being in the bhakti state, in a state of communion or dance or interconnectedness with Divine Mother. I definitely am not in it at all times. I forget. I revert back to autopilot, and sometimes not the autopilot that I wish, but the actual reactionary autopilot that doesn't think about things. But I find that being reminded that there is only one goal, there is only one task, and that is that bhakti, that connection, that dance with Divine Mother, it takes a lot of weight off of me. And this world, as it's set up in its human trappings, can be very confusing because it gets intricate and complicated and draws you in like an enchantment. It's the illusion of Maya. And so you can be fooled into thinking that other things matter. So it can almost sometimes be difficult to be convinced that really actually, I guess, I'm here right now. Someday I won't be here like this. What do I want to be the most important thing that I do with each moment of my time? And is it paying the bills? Is it all of the 1,000 things of the world? The 88 things or whatever, 80. I don't remember that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Steve Hagen's. We all have 84.
Whatever this list is, it's going to always be that many things. Or can I just narrow it down to what's essential, which is how is my spiritual journey going? How is my communion with Divine Mother and this kind of dance that we're in right at this very moment? And if I can get to that place and remind myself of it, I feel that my days are more relaxed, my interactions. It's different. I almost want to say, in those moments, you feel the seamlessness, you feel the ease. Even if easy things aren't happening, there's still sort of okay, well, my teenager is having trouble right now. This is a volatile time, and there's lots to, understand about the world. I can either be like, I'm your mom, blah, blah, or I can be there with Divine Mother, and I'm Divine Mother, and she's Divine Mother, and there's this opportunity, I don't want to make it, the thing is, I don't want to make it sound like, it's always just like rainbows and kittens, and there's a special quality of it that is its own thing when you get to that place. And to me, it feels like when we talk about the wheel, it's neither the high or the low, it's the center,
Yeah.
It's
an engagedness.
Yeah.
And I think, it's fine to talk about things like this, but when we're in the middle of feeling a weight, it's really hard to not get sucked in by that weight.
Oh, hard. So how do we not?
I feel like that's where we've found that that prayer, asking Divine Mother, you do this much better than me and much often than I do. But you're in the midst, you're in a turmoil, and then we say, Divine Mother, can you help me see this clearly? Can you guide my words and actions? Can you help me to stop for a moment? Be responsive instead of reactive. Can I just soak into you for a little bit? And having that person to go to who will just meet us with softness, will grant us some strength, will help us to slow down. That is a helper to me that's so much better than any kind of willpower based tool that I've used throughout my life. And willpower can do a lot. It can be pretty kick butt. But for me, at least, I find that it has definite limitations. And there's a huge difference between the times when I try to use willpower when it's really bad and fails, or the times when I remember, oh, Divine Mother, I'm in reactive mode.
Yeah.
Can you help me see things clearly? Can you take me over? Can you be my guide?
Yeah, I think it's essential that we have an allowing, and that only by allowing what is unfolding to be what is, and that might include our overreactionary selves, ourselves that are weighting things too heavily. In an allowing of that, there is a momentum, a movement forward, and then we don't have stagnation. We always have this flow, and we have a place where we can just be for a second. And when we connect with Divine Mother, I think her message is like, um, well, it says, you're enough. You don't have to be anything. She does for us what we are looking to do for ourselves, which is just allowing, just being with us as however we are. I was gonna say it's like a small child who's having a tantrum. You can't, it doesn't work super well to grab them and try to force them to sit still in a chair and be calm. I'm not that way, and I'm a grown up. You just need to let the energy out, right? All our feelings need to be let out. And in that, then we can find a stillness that comes in afterwards. And from there, we can hear, I think I hear more clearly at least, whatever that natural response is. Yeah. Anytime I am in a whirlwind, in a tantrum, and I do that willpower thing and I don't connect in with Divine Mother, wow, I get sucked into this whirlpool. It's just one thing after another thing, and all the weights of the world just kind of like a closet that has too many things in it, and you open it, it's the stopping and the checking in and just the allowing.
Yeah.
Miss Pettifor's Closet. Great book, Miss Pettifor.
Yeah. So I feel like this is something to try if you haven't. Is when you're feeling reactionary, when you're feeling that weight of something, to ask for help. To say, hey, can you be here with me? Can you help me to navigate this? And even just in doing that, we start to move ourselves a little bit more towards that ultimate goal of saying, oh gosh, yes, got to remember that my illusion's coming. It's pelting me with those bills and those dishes and that remark I made to my wife and all these things. Instead, can I just focus on the one thing that's important? And then see what comes out of you when your focus is just on bhakti. And if this idea is new to you, you haven't been watching this a lot, this idea of bhakti, it's falling in love with Divine Mother, realizing that she is becoming everything, including you, is becoming everything around you. So in falling in love with her, we fall in love with the dishes, we fall in love with the trees, we fall in love with our thoughts, with each other, with everything we see and experience, seeing it as her. She just becomes the focus of our love, and that's all we have to pay attention to. as just being in love with the world.
Mm. Wow, I like it.
Sure. Comments or
Yeah.
thoughts? And there, we'd welcome you to come visit our website, divinemother.love, and our Patreon community. It is free, and you can go there and get, without any algorithm, I would call it algorithm free, notifications of everything that we put out. So, meaning that you won't get anything else from YouTube if you're trying to cut your technology, then when you sign up there, we'll send you via email, Patreon will, so you know when these messages come out.
Wow, grateful for all of you. So just keep sharing with us. It's a really, really nice way to keep learning and growing.
Love to you all.